Hello, welcome back to the Coleman channel, and welcome back to another Tube review. Wow, oh yes, the Tube review, the series where we review films, shows, things like that. You get the idea. It's a review show. Yes, we're back. It's a Tube review. I've explained what this show is before my previous review of The Batman, which you should definitely check out. The Batman's been out for quite a little while now, so I'm sure people who have seen it can go on and see what I think of the film and all that kind of stuff. And if you haven't seen it yet, you can get an idea of where we should see it. I literally saw it for the second time a couple of weeks ago, and pretty much everything that I said in that review is pretty much still extant. My views have not changed on that film whatsoever, actually. Yeah, you should go check out that review. I'm not going to go on about it too much because we're here to review another film. Originally I was going to review just movies from 2022, films I may have missed already, because obviously I've not done the Tube review since, like, I think mid to early 2021 on my old defunct channel Coleman 2, which I explained before, but it doesn't matter because we're going to be reviewing a film that I thought came out this year, and I was actually completely wrong. It came out in November. That's how long it's been since I saw it, but it doesn't matter. We're going to be reviewing, you've probably seen the title already, it's Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yes, Ghostbusters Afterlife. This is a film I really wanted to talk about very much because, long story short, Ghostbusters is probably one of my all-time favourite film franchises. Well, franchises in general at this point of all freaking time. I am a massive fan of Ghostbusters, as I think a lot of people are. Ghostbusters is just one of these series that just resonates with so many people. It has something for everybody. It's a perfect blend of horror and comedy that just does not exist, and I don't think any other film. It's a very unique movie. It's a very unique franchise. Nothing else quite exists similar to the Ghostbusters franchise, with that pretty much every banger iconic character, banger iconic music, banger iconic plot, story, ghosts, setting. Everything about it is just absolutely fan-freaking-tastic, and I've been a major fan of the franchise ever since I was a wee little child, specifically probably about 2009, when Ghostbusters, a video game, came out, which is probably when, I've watched the films before, but that gaming experience is what really nailed down my love for the franchise. When you get to be in amongst like a whole new story and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, yes, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Ghostbusters 3, whatever you'd call it. It's been one of these movies that's just been in development hell for years and years. It's been talked about since, pretty much as soon as Ghostbusters 2 came out back in 1989, I think it was. I can't quite remember. Obviously, Ghostbusters 2 is kind of very mid for a lot of people. I like Ghostbusters 2, bro. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, the first one absolutely plows it. But 2 is still very good. It's a good worthy sequel, I would have said. Yeah, the point is, the third film has been talked about for fucking years, specifically since maybe the late noughties is probably when talk started happening about it, and then it's just one of these films that probably no one ever thought would happen. And of course we got the reboot, Ghostbusters 2016, or Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which is the full title, which they never used for some reason. They only called it that at the end of the credits. Never seen it, don't plan on seeing it, not particularly interested in it. I just don't like the idea of trying to reboot the franchise in such a way where it has pretty much nothing to do with the original source material. It's just kind of like one of these films that you just can't do that to. Ghostbusters is just a fucking fantastic franchise, and getting rid of everything that made it great and just starting afresh never really seemed like a very good idea to me. It never really seemed like a film I wanted to watch. And ever since 2016, almost 6 years later, I still haven't seen it, nor do I plan to. But Ghostbusters Afterlife, when they started talking about it, and I think maybe 2019, because it was meant to come out 2020, and then obviously the pandemic hit and completely threw a spanner in the works. Yes, this was a film that I was honestly very excited about. Obviously, for a long time, the video game was pretty much the third film at that point in time. It does continue from the first two films, pretty much a whole story taken after the first two movies. All the original cast are still there, including Harold Ramis, who co-wrote the film alongside Dan Aykroyd, who plays Ray Stantz, Howard Ramis plays Egon Spengler. After his very sad death in 2014, he was there for the game. So I had everybody, the whole cast was there, the whole new story. It was great. Still holds up to this day. It's a very, very good game. If you want to play it, just to experience the third Ghostbusters film, I highly recommend it. They should have kept it canon, but they didn't. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife. See, I don't think I need to explain what Ghostbusters is. I think everybody should know what Ghostbusters is. If you've never seen any of the films, just watch them. What are you doing? Just watch the films. Please, for the love of God, just do yourself a favour and watch Ghostbusters, because it's just the, honestly, classic 80s timelessness right there. I'm not going to go much further into that because we're here to talk about Ghostbusters Afterlife. So we start off the tube review with a very short, sweet review of the film. I kind of knew that when it came out, it would probably be very the thoughts on the film would be split in two. I feel like a lot of people would have I don't think people would love it. I knew for a fact it was never ever in a million years going to hold up to the original film. I didn't even think maybe it would hold up to the second film, even though some people don't like that as much. But because the second film still retains that original Ghostbusters spirit. No pun intended. But I thought at the very least it'd be a pretty decent film. It'd be a nice kind of film made by fans for fans. It would be a nice kind of passing of the torch to a new era of Ghostbusters that might carry on. And it would, at the very least, respect the source material and be a worthy installment into the franchise, is what I personally thought it was going to be like. And I knew it'd be quite, there'd be a lot of people thinking they didn't like it at all, or they thought it would just be okay, or they just didn't bother to watch it, or whatever. But I knew I was going to watch it, is the thing. And when I went to see it, and I walked out of the cinema, I thought it was pretty good. Pretty much everything that I thought about it was, for me, it was correct. Nowhere near as good as the original film. Untouchable. That is like a thing that stands above and beyond. And in terms of the second film, Ghostbusters 2, I don't know if I would say the Ghostbusters 2 is better than Afterlife, or they're maybe kind of almost equal with each other. It's kind of hard to say. But, the fact of the matter is, it's a pretty good film. I enjoyed it. I didn't watch it going, wow, this is spitting in the face of everything. I thought it was a really nice return to form, a nice, nostalgia fest, which is not a good thing necessarily of itself. If you just throw nostalgia, with no substance in it, kind of falls on deaf ears, in my opinion. But it was the good balance between having the nice nostalgic elements of this timeless franchise and bringing about a whole new era to it. It was the original director of the first two films, Ivan Reitman's son, Jason Reitman, who directed the film, and you could tell that the guy wanted to do justice to his father's directorial vision, but with his own spin on it. So I think that is what it felt like. Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. It was a good film, and it kind of took, it did what Ghostbusters did, but pretty much as I expected, pretty much with pale in comparison to that. But it would still do a damn fine job, is basically the summarization of all that. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Definitely enjoyed it. As a Ghostbusters fan specifically, I didn't feel disappointed at all. I'm glad that they made it. Definitely glad that they made it. I didn't watch and go, why does this exist? I was like, I'm glad this exists. It felt good to be watching it. It felt good that we could get a film like this after the, attempted reboot in 2016 that not a lot of people really wanted or cared for, I don't think. It was just nice to get a new Ghostbusters film set in the original Ghostbusters universe, celebrating Ghostbusters and proving that this franchise still has a bit of life in it. It was pretty good. And that's my short review. And now if you're here for the long, detailed review of what I thought about pretty much everything across the board. So the plot borrowed a lot of elements from the first film, but was not a carbon copy whatsoever. It was just a big focus on the return of Gozer, the Gozerian, the big god entity that was the main antagonist of the first film. There was a lot of focus on Ivo Shandor, who's like kind of like this name character that appears very often in the Ghostbusters series. You know, he's just an occultist leader who worships who worships Gozer and tries to bring about Gozer and destroy the world, and he becomes one of his loyal subjects and all that kind of stuff. He's actually the main antagonist of the video game, which is why it was such a great third film. Just want to say again, that's why it was a great third film, because Shandor became the main villain, as would make perfect sense. But obviously it goes back to Shandor again. The whole idea of Ivo Shandor is was a massive businessman in his day. He owns lots of different businesses and stuff, and they're all basically just used to bring about the coming of Gozer. And this is where this film is, much like the first film. The building that Sigourney Weaver lived in, Dana Barrett, was this building that was meant to bring about the coming of Gozer. So too is this little kind of like hick town, little mini place, and wherever it was, Oklahoma. There you go. Sorry, it's been since November since I saw this film for the first time, but it's pretty much the same idea again. It's like a mining corporation that Shandor owned, and the mine is another place to bring about Gozer and such. There it is. That's kind of the same idea. The coming of Gozer is happening again. The late and great Harold Ramis, who is obviously not in the. Although I really liked the way that they did that for a start. I love the way that they made Egon's character, what Egon's character has become. It picks up. The Ghostbusters got disbanded after the second film. Egon steals all of the equipment and fucks off to Oklahoma without telling any of his friends why. And it's literally because he's trying to stop the coming of Shandor by himself. I guess that's the one. I don't know why he wouldn't just tell the rest of them. Why? I can't remember if there was a reason as to why he didn't tell anybody. Why he didn't tell the other three Ghostbusters, come and help me stop Shandor. I can't really remember the reason why. And if there was a reason. But that's the whole plot. Like, Egon basically, forgoed his family and his friends, I guess, to just be the one dude who's willing to just stand against Gozer for the rest of his days. Which is really cool. I love the way that he set up all these traps, like in the mine shaft. He has like 4 proton packs like pointed to cross the streams and beam down into this massive shaft where the demons are going to come from and stuff. But yeah, that was a pretty cool plot element. I liked Egon's development because, he is like the brain box of all the, they're all vastly intelligent, but like Egon is like just the brain of the team. And it makes sense that he would be the dude to like fuck off and, instigate all this stuff without telling anybody. It was a good way to write Harold Ramis in, because you couldn't have Ghostbusters without Egon. Obviously, they're the quartet. So it made sense that he would be like the main figure of the film. Like, his family inherit this spooky house in Oklahoma where he lived. No one likes Egon because they abandoned them and all that kind of stuff. Egon's granddaughter Phoebe, played by Mckenna Grace, is obviously becomes like the protege to Egon and all that kind of stuff. It made sense. He was basically, Harold Ramis was the one that made the Ghostbusters story what it was. Obviously, Dan Aykroyd came up with the concept and he wrote it with him, but it was basically Harold Ramis that made Ghostbusters what it is. The film that you see is a lot to do with him. So it makes sense that his character becomes like the central figure while he's not there. And kind of orchestrates all this kind of stuff. Obviously from the Afterlife, which I guess is where the film name comes from. Afterlife of the Ghostbusters. Egon's afterlife and all that kind of stuff. Passing on the torch and all that kind of thing. It was really nice how they did it. Egon being this invisible spirit, helping Phoebe build the basement again and find all the equipment and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the plot is pretty cut and dry, is that Gozer's coming back again, and Egon from beyond the grave is trying to stop it from happening by, being a guiding hand to the youngins, the new Ghostbusters are pulling up. Phoebe and her brother Finn Wolfhard, I think his name is Trevor. Paul Rudd is there as well as, I think, Gary, I think his name was, or something like that. And the mother, Egon's daughter, and then this other goofy ass kid who Phoebe makes friends with called Podcast. I don't know why they called him Podcast. I have no idea why. But yeah, they're kind of like gearing up to become like the new, kind of pass the torch on to these younger people from beyond the grave and trying to get them to bring about the end of Gozer, the permanent end of Gozer, and all that kind of stuff. And obviously there's a lot of elements in the first film, like Vince Clortho and Zul, the gatekeeper and the keymaster, the two demon dog dudes who fuck and bring about Gozer by possessing the bodies of two humans, in this case Paul Rudd and the mother, Callie. Callie played by Carrie Coon. They're the victims of this possession, and then, you know, they do the thing, they do the deed, they do the gatekeeper, keymaster, you know what I'm saying? And they bring about Gozer, they take their side alongside them. Stay Puft Marshmallow little dudes pull up and all that kind of stuff. You know, there's a lot of elements taken from the first film, like Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Gozer, Zul, Vince Clortho, and another iteration of Slimer. I can't actually remember the name of. Honestly, there was a big blue dude who, like, doesn't eat food, but just eats metal and stuff. Really not as memorable as Slimer at all. I don't think there could be any way to top Slimer as like the iconic ghost of the film. Yeah, and this blue dude definitely did not make the cut at all. He was not very memorable at all, in my opinion. Pretty forgettable little dude. Little lame CG little blue fricker who eats metal and stuff. It was kind of boring. Yeah, it's pretty simple stuff. It's a pretty cut and dry, very simple plot, not very complicated at all. It takes a lot of elements from the first film, and, you know, for what it is, as simple and like referencey, I suppose you would say, as it is, it holds the film together. It doesn't feel very boring. It doesn't feel like a waste. It doesn't feel like a plot that they shouldn't have done. I guess it would make sense, because if they're planning on like making more, or making like a whole new Ghostbustery thing, I think this would be a good jumping off point for that. It makes sense that this would have been a plot thing. I can't really think of any other way they would have gone about it, especially with the age of the original Ghostbusters now. Obviously, the big reveal, they didn't really keep it a very good secret in the trailers and stuff, but they pulled up. Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, Ernie Hudson, they're all there. They all return again, of course, as you'd expect. But yeah, they're not the main plot of the film at all. Phoebe like phones Ray up once to like find out what happened to the Ghostbuster. He gives the story and all that kind of stuff. You see Ray more than the other two, but you don't see any of them until near the end of the film. The usual nonsense, and they're only in it for a little bit, like a couple of minutes. But for what it is, you know, it's just good to see them put on the proton packs again and bust some damn ghosts, and it was very, very exciting to see. It really, really hit me in my my childhood feels. When I saw them, I felt really emotional seeing them put on the packs again and doing what they do best. Which is obviously the ideal. It's a bit of a cheap shot, very easy to do that, but, you know, it's Ghostbusters, bruh. Like, it's so easy to get people to feel some shit to see this happen again, and it definitely worked for me, man. So it was just very great to see that, obviously. And for what, you know, they did not waste them at all. There was their usual funny character setup. You know, they did exactly what they would do in the film, so it was good to see them there. And of course, when Egon finally materializes in his physical form and joins them in the quartet, just absolutely fantastic. They did a really good job with Egon. He looked exactly like Harold Ramis, old man Harold Ramis with the beard and the white hair, and it was very sweet to see him manage to reconcile with his family and say goodbye and stuff and like pass on. It was very, very sweet and a very nice farewell and tribute to Harold Ramis for sure. It was really, really sweet, and I think it was the best way to do that. Yes, cut and dry plot. As for the characters, like I said, pretty much they can nowhere near nail what is pretty much the perfection of character development and characterization that is the original Ghostbusters quartet. All of them are perfectly nailed. All of them have a perfect role to play. You know, their personalities are just so chef kiss. They're all hilarious in their own little way, and they all have something different to bring to the table of the film series. And, you know, this new bunch of dudes, the young kids, the adults and stuff, they're okay. They carried the film well enough. Phoebe is kind of like the main focus, as, you know, Egon's granddaughter, protege. You know, she's got the glasses and the curly hair and the deadpan demeanor and the humor and stuff. She is pretty funny. She's got some good, I like her deadpanness and all that kind of stuff. You know, there wasn't a character that I really necessarily hated. I didn't hate her. I didn't hate Finn Wolfhard, Trevor, you know, the older brother. Probably just ripped straight out of Stranger Things, obviously. As I said, it's got that kind of Stranger Things feel going on because it's retro 80s stuff. Ooh, and it's kids. But I do appreciate that, like the fact that they had kids in it, because, you know, I think every kid in the 1980s watching Ghostbusters wanted to be a Ghostbuster. And I feel like a nice nod, tip of the hat to that kind of thing, where the kids are the Ghostbusters, and it's like, wow, I wanted to be that when I was a little child, driving the 821 and busting ghosts because it makes me feel good. I thought that was pretty nice. Podcast, this fucking kid, played by a kid called Logan Kim. They probably definitely could have had this film without this dude. You know, it was okay. I just didn't really understand why he was in it. He just seemed like the Ghostbusters obsessive, you know, because he's into podcasts, man. He's a modern dude. He's on the internet. He knows all this stuff, man. You know, I guess that was the end. You know, we need a kid that knows about the Ghostbusters prior. So let's have this kid who's into podcasting and is internet savvy, quote unquote. I don't know. I kind of felt like he was the vehicle to introduce Phoebe to this Ghostbusters thing and the craze and all that. But, like, that's one of the things I thought was really weird. How could everyone just forget about the Ghostbusters? Because, like, bruh, they were based in New York City, of all places, the biggest city of the United States of America, and the focal point for a giant kaiju marshmallow stomping the streets and the coming of a giant god, and all these ghosts are coming back to life, the Titanic pulling up and all that kind of stuff, ghost activity being at an all-time high and whatnot, and, you know, an entire museum being encased in like pink slime and stuff like that, and the Statue of Liberty walking onto New York City. That's not the kind of thing that people forget. Even if you're a young kid, you probably would have heard about it, right? That's kind of one of the things I thought was a little bit silly, honestly, because, like, I don't know, I don't feel like the kids would have just not known about that, and I don't think they needed this podcasty, internet savvy character to be the one that goes, oh yes, you not heard about these dudes, oh, busting makes me feel good. There could have been a different way to do that. I don't know. I feel like there would have been a better understanding of the Ghostbusters or a thing that existed, and it really just seemed like no one... I can buy that people don't believe it, because, you know, that was a big thing of the films. You know, there were people that just did not believe that the Ghostbusters were real. They're making all this stuff up. It was all smoke and mirrors. Like Walter Peck, who was a big character in the first two films, was like the human antagonist of the Ghostbusters, always government official trying to shut them down and all that kind of stuff and have them incarcerated. And I guess that element's still kind of there, you know, there's no such thing as ghosts, the Ghostbusters were all fake. But I don't know, there was definitely some people who would have believed in it. Like, you know, Paul Rudd knew what the Ghostbusters were, to be fair. Like, he knew about the ghost trap, he was very excited to see it. That's true, but, like, I feel like everyone just didn't know. It just felt like it was not as big as it should have been. I don't know. The Ghostbusters coming and going, I can get that, but, like, man, Statue of Liberty and the big marshmallow man, my guy. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? I don't know. Could have been a bit more self-aware of that. But, you know, it is what it is. Speaking of Paul Rudd, his character was pretty cool. You know, I like Paul Rudd as an actor. He's pretty cool in all the things that he's in. Pretty funny, average Joe type beat. And, you know, for what, he wasn't anything too crazy. He was just kind of like the adult guy. He was the adult guy, the main adult dude of the films. And, you know, it was cool. He was like the Ghostbusters fanboy and all that kind of stuff, helping the kids along with their funny adventures and stuff. But I think the better adult character was definitely, I think Callie was probably the best adult character. Yes, Aegon's daughter, because she's the one who feels the most spurned. You know, she doesn't like his dad very much. She walked down his family, disappeared to a place in the middle of nowhere for basically no reason. She kind of had an idea, obviously, who he was, but, you know, she never talked about it, didn't want to think about it, because that was his life, I guess, and, like, you know, that was more busting ghosts more important than family. But she was cool. I liked the idea of, like, she was like the focal point of this spurned character who doesn't want to think about Egon or the Ghostbusters or anything related to that, because it basically ruined their family, you know, which is a pretty cool. I like that angle of the seriousness of that aspect. It's not all just fun and games, like, you know, as like it is made out to be in like the first two films. There's not a lot of like mad seriousness of the coming of a Mesopotamian ancient god who wants to destroy everything in a destructor form. There's a very much laughy, jokey thing about it, but this whole aspect of like a family falling apart because of the ghost busting brings that kind of element into it. It's kind of like the superhero angle, you know, there's a pro and con, like the superhero one, you know, it's a Spider-Man thing, you know, you can save the day and be a superhero, but, you know, you end up spurning those you love who can't know your secret. And it kind of is that here. Egon has to walk out on all his family to like protect the world essentially from the coming of Gozer once again, and you get to see the repercussions of that through Callie, which is good. It was a cool angle they don't really get to see in the other two films. I don't think that whole side of it is pretty cool to see. As for the location, that's probably the biggest thing about it, because obviously one of the most iconic aspects of the Ghostbusters films is the setting. New York City, massive deal. That was like one of the most important aspects of the whole film, specifically the second movie. And the whole plot is bringing the city back together and love and patriotism with the Statue of Liberty pulling up and stuff. I can see why some people preferred the first film. It's a very weird angle to go with, but it just shows how important New York City is to Ghostbusters, for sure, absolutely. And that's like the biggest element that is missing from Afterlife, is it's not set in New York City at all. You only see New York City in the end credits scene for like 2, 3, 4 seconds, where Ernie Hudson, Winston Zeddemore, is returning to New York City from Oklahoma in the Ecto one, and he's passing into the bridge into New York City, and you see like a skyline shot of it for a couple of seconds. It's good that it was, you know, New York had to be in there somewhere. You know, it's, you know, New York City is almost a character in and of itself in Ghostbusters, as is Gotham City is to Batman. You know what I'm saying? So I had to be in there somewhere, but it's not the main setting at all. It's this weird fucking like population of like 500 little town in the middle of nowhere, bumfuck nowhere, Somerville, Oklahoma, which is a very interesting choice. And I don't know if it would be I still don't know myself yet if it's the best choice. Like, it's an interesting aesthetic for sure. I like the idea of this, you know, spooky, abandoned, psycho-esque house that Egon goes to. Obviously he goes there because the mine is in Oklahoma, where Gozer's gonna ascend and pull up again and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if it would be the place I would have picked, you know? I get that New York City's, you know, mind-bogglingly expensive to film in, and I don't know much about the budget of this film compared to the first two, but, you know, if they couldn't film in New York City, that's absolutely understandable. It's mad expensive to film there. Like, for example, just to give you an idea of the limitations of being able to film there in terms of budget, Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan, is a sequel in the Friday the 13th franchise where, as the name implies, Jason Voorhees, the hockey mask wearing serial killer, ends up in New York City, but pretty much 70 to 80% of the film takes place on the boat going there, and then the rest takes place in Manhattan, and a little tiny sliver of Manhattan as well, because it's just so expensive to film there. And that's the reason why he's only there for a fraction of the film, is because if they filmed the entire of the movie in New York, it would probably be the biggest budget Friday film, and they were not going to get that budget for a Friday the 13th movie. So I don't know why, if they just didn't get the budget to film in a location like that, because it would have been very exciting to see New York City Ghostbusters again, but, you know, that's not what we got. Again, I like the idea. It's a very interesting directorial choice to set it in this little hick town place. I don't know if that'd be the choice I would make. It can be quite boring to see the same place over and over again. I'll say that. Like, you can say that about New York, because like one place in New York is the same as the other, but it's an iconic, it's the Big Apple, bro. It's a big iconic city. Compared to this little town, it can be a bit boring, I think. But, you know, it lends to some very cool scenes, like Finn Wolfhard driving the Ecto 1 through like the wheat fields and stuff is really cool. Phoebe going out into like this junkyard place, testing the proton pack for the first time. It lends to some cool little bits like that, you know. The car chase scene in the Ecto one, chasing the blue dude. I think I remember his name is Muncher. Yeah, you can see trying to parallel Slimer, but not very well, in my opinion. That was pretty cool. There's some cool bits, I would say that, but you know, interesting choice. Don't know if it'd be the one that I picked. Still don't know how I feel about it. Not my favourite, not my choice of place, definitely not, but it's an interesting one. I'm not saying it's like that's bad, boo, dumb. Interesting, lends some interesting concepts and good looking scenes and cinematography, but it would not have been my place to pick for sure. In terms of things I didn't like about the film, I mentioned the part that, you know, everyone forgetting about the Ghostbusters is a very strange thing to me. Obviously, like I realised while talking, Paul Rudd remembers the Ghostbusters podcast, knows about the Ghostbusters, but no one in that little town in Oklahoma seems to know what the hell they are. I don't remember that being a big thing at all. Obviously, maybe that's the idea of setting it in a pure rural town away from big cities, is because everyone's going to be talking about the Ghostbusters when things are happening. So maybe the further away from everyone they are, the better no one knows, the further you go out. But these are I would say these are like probably international headline stories, the stuff that are going on with the Ghostbusters and a giant marshmallow man walking across New York City and a Statue of Liberty coming to life while listening to Higher and Higher while being controlled by an NES Advantage controller. These seem to be the kind of things that everyone across the globe would know about, and it just seemed very strange to me that not a lot of people knew about it at all. It just didn't really seem convenient, a little bit too convenient to me. Ivo Shandor was a thing that I really didn't like at all, actually, when they did it. Here's this big occultist character, the guy, this human dude, a master architect who's been secretly plotting in the background as this high-standing business dude of the coming of Gozer. He's this silent character that's been through all of the films, primarily the first film, main antagonist of the video game, which I still think should have been made canon. That's another thing that annoys me, actually. I don't care what anyone says, this is very, very specific to me, but I think a lot of people would agree that the third film somehow should have remained canon. Somehow. I don't know how they would do it, because obviously you have this, the player character is just a faceless random dude called Rookie. He doesn't even have a name, doesn't speak or anything. You could have referenced him somehow, but Ghostbusters 3 had a fantastic plot. It was written by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd. It was just the third film at the end of the day, and I feel like throwing the story of that game to the wayside is a bit of a shocker, because it was just a fantastic story. It finally made Shandor this very scary character who became like a god in his own right, became a destructor form, much like Gozer did and all that kind of stuff. And it combines elements of the first and second films and that, and they just kind of didn't bother at all. They just kind of made it non-canon and carried off from the second film. I don't think they should have done that. I really do think the game should have been the last story that happened. I think maybe they were worried that no one knew what it would be, but come on, bruh. People who played the game, people who know Ghostbusters would know what the game was. And even if they didn't, people would find out, oh, there is a video game and this is the story, you know? I don't think it would have been too reaching to include the plot of that game and incorporate it into the canon. And then you would have like a quadrilogy almost, because Ghostbusters is just the third film. At the end of the day, it is Ghostbusters 3, and they should have had it included. And this is where my thing I didn't like about Shandor in this film comes into it. Shandor appears in the film. He appears in the movie for the first time in character, and I never expected that to happen at all. I thought it was insane. He's played by J.K. Simmons, a fantastic actor, fantastic choice to play Shandor, and he's in a coffin, undead, alive, waiting for the coming of Gozer. And then Gozer arrives, Shandor comes out of his coffin, very exciting stuff, he's about to take his side, and Gozer just immediately slices him in half. He does an Ultron to him, to Thanos in that one episode of What If, just kills him off immediately. Haha, funny joke. Why fucking would you do that? Why would you do that? I get the oh yes, you know, you serve me well, boom. I am an evil god and you are a mortal idiot. But bruh, like, he should have not been killed off so early. It just seems like such a slap in the face, such a massive part of the story and the lore of Ghostbusters, and this secret antagonist who's behind all of this stuff, bringing about Gozer the Gozerian, bringing about his destructor form, trying all different ways, like all these secret businesses and buildings he's created, they're all just secret occultist business. It's such a massive aspect of the films, and when they finally have him in it, played by such a fantastic actor, and the fact that he's only out for like a couple of seconds till he gets killed for basically a cheap joke or a shock moment, it's just a bit freaking weak sauce, bro. I really did not like that at all, and that's where my grudge with the game comes in too. The game does Shandor so much justice as this secret antagonist that it makes him essentially the final villain of the Ghostbusters trilogy. And to have that fantastic plot thrown on the wayside, to have a cheap shock horror laughy joke of Shandor getting killed, is just a bit weak and lame and stupid, and I really didn't like that. I really think they could have done it a better way. I would even have minded if they did that, if they had the plot of the third film in, like this is Shandor's final plan, he failed as a destructor, now he's just back in his old corpse body, ready to be awakened by Gozer, and then he gets killed because maybe Gozer knew that he tried to become a destructor form and stuff. That would have made sense to me, but they kind of just threw it to the wayside and made a dumb scene that I did not like very much at all. And if you're wondering yourself, oh well, Gozer, Ivo Shandor's a skeleton corpse, he's very dead in the game. Well, there's a thing called retconning. They could have retconned some stuff as they needed to do it. It's their lore, it's their story, they can do what they want, and the game would be very rife to retcon as opposed to the movies. I think they could have done it as easily as they would have wanted to, and they just kind of didn't go that avenue, which is a very big bummer. A very, very big bummer to me. And as a result, the Shandor scene, it's probably my least favourite thing of the whole film. I think it's just really poor that they did it, to be honest. And I guess the only other thing that I would say they wish they did a little bit more of is some really weird other outer dimensional stuff like we saw in the first movie, like when Sigourney Weaver opens her fridge and it's just a fucking realm with steps, and then the gatekeeper and the keymaster are there, and you just get to see otherworldly dimensional things that you cannot possibly comprehend. There's not really any of that in this film. It's mostly staying in this town or the mine shaft or Egon's house. You do get to see Ray Stantz's occult book store from the first two films. It's pretty cool, but that's about it really. And you do get to see the firehouse at the end of the film. That was a nice little thing, and a nice little setup to carry on the film. Like, Winston's become a very successful businessman, as of course he would, and he's ready to buy the Ghostbusters and make it great again. Those are really the only other places that you see in the film. Not really any of this crazy dimensional craziness. And I think that probably wraps up my thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife. I thought it was pretty damn good. It wasn't amazing. I didn't think it would be. I didn't think it would hold up candle to the first film. Thought it might hold up with the second film. I don't know yet. I think maybe it does hold up with the second film, honestly. Pretty much like they're very narrow, like one's like there, one's like there. I can't really tell yet. But it brought its own thing. It's its own separate entity while retaining some of the classic nostalgia stuff. Great, the storyline holds it all together. There's some great little moments. All the things I mentioned there, it's all great. I thought there were some really great moments. Nothing that like blew my mind. Made me go, holy fucking shit, crazy madness. But it was good. I watched for the whole film and I was pleasantly entertained, and it's just a pleasure to see Ghostbusters back in a way that should be. I'm still not going to watch the reboot. No thanks. And I guess it's time for the grand old epic lame ratio rating. Got it right on the first time there, that was pretty rad. So, for the epic to lame ratio placement of Ghostbusters Afterlife, I would probably pretty confidently put it either mid to high tier pretty epic. I would say mid to high tier pretty epic. It's pretty snugly around those two places. It's definitely not very epic or most epic. It did not ascend that high whatsoever, but it's for absolutely not lame at all. It was a very enjoyable film, and a very nice return to the Ghostbusters franchise. And the most important thing to me out of everything, to be quite honest, is Ghostbusters Afterlife is irrefutable proof that Ghostbusters has life in it yet, literally, in terms of the lore, the world that it inhabits, of the ghosts and the technology and the fight against the spirits and all that kind of stuff. This film shows that that is rife to make more and franchise it. A lot of people might just go like, you should just let these things lie. But, they've done it before. They've made very excellent original content out of Ghostbusters before, with the cartoons and all that kind of stuff. And while 2016 did happen, it just kind of fell on deaf ears to me, and it was just kind of a misfire in terms of showing how Ghostbusters can still be a thing. Afterlife is that perfect direct hit. Don't know why I'm trying to replicate a gun, of how Ghostbusters can be done again and done great and become this massive thing with the lore and the spirits and the ghost dimension and the technology created and the science jargon that goes into all of it. I really do think that that's the best thing about Ghostbusters Afterlife. If everything else about it, like the story and all that, were like up with the first film, would obviously be most epic, but it was just never going to happen. So, high to mid-tier pretty epic is definitely where I place it quite confidently. And that is today's Tube review, Ghostbusters Afterlife, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this installment. More reviews are on the way. I've got a couple of ideas for films that came out this year that I'm ready to talk about. I won't say what they are here yet. Just stay tuned for them when it happens. And, make sure to stay tuned to the Coleman channel. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, comment, share, bell. You know what to do, all that kind of thing. Share amongst your friends. Get ready and psyched for more epic Tube reviews. More behind the process. The script for the next Coleman's Career Perspective is currently in the works. It's pretty deep in. I'm just taking my time with it at the moment. And of course, we're still streaming. I'm currently, as of this video, I'm currently taking a break from it right now. I don't want to stream when I'm not feeling up for it, because it's unauthentic and it'd be lame to see me trying to force a stream. No one wants to see that. So I'll be back at some point. Do not fret. We're still trying to get that goddamn free consecutive viewer goal, baby. That's still on the cards and it's going to happen. So yeah, stay tuned for when Coleman Live comes back on Twitch again. We're actually a follower away from 60, which is pretty insane. So feel free to hit the follow button if you want to check that out. And yeah, I think that's all the things for now. Ghostbusters Afterlife.